Today we have Larry discussing the current economic situation and advocating for owning assets like Bitcoin, gold, and real estate as a way to protect against currency debasement and inflation. Larry unveils a profound insight into the current economic landscape, particularly from the perspective of an investor seeking to safeguard their wealth against inflation and financial instability. Larry's discourse sheds light on several key themes, including the importance of owning assets immune to government manipulation, the rise of Bitcoin as a superior store of value, the implications of government debt monetization, and the looming threat of inflation amidst expansive fiscal policies. We will now bring you clips from the interview where Larry provides his latest insights as we show you these clips. Could I ask for a small favor? If you have a moment, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks. Make sure to stay through the end of the video where Larry explains how to protect asset in an inflationary environment. We hope you enjoy the video.
As an investor, you need to own assets which the government can't print. So, Bitcoin is the best, gold is up there, real estate's up there. Everybody needs to be prepared to deal with the volatility, and everybody needs to think long term. And because long term, I'm quite confident that this is going to be a multi-million dollar per coin asset. And so if you're buying it at 72 today, you're feeling, it feels like you're paying too much, but one of the great stories from Madeira, somebody told me they knew Max pretty well. I guess when Max was buying his first coins, he paid, this is Max Kaiser, he was paying 50 cents. And he felt like he'd overpaid because Trace Meyer, who's a true OG, was buying his at 30 cents. Pretty much everybody who's in Bitcoin feels like they're too late and they're overpaying until about 5 or 10 years go by. And then you're thinking, and people are going to be saying, what do you mean? Hang on, you have one whole coin? I wish I'd bought more. Well, we all do. But buy what you can because it's a superior savings technology. And then, sit back and go live your life and do things you enjoy, knowing that your money is not being debased, which is a very comforting feeling, right? The big picture is the things that we've been warning about for some time now, many of us for years really, but more recently, the last few years, are all starting to kind of come together. $1 trillion of debt added in 100 days, and record deficits, no spending restraint by Congress, the approval of the ETF and the multiplier impact that's had on the price of Bitcoin. And as we know, it's kind of been a relentless uptrend, strong and up to the right since 50,000 when the ETF was approved. And there's another thing, probably a lot of people didn't focus on it, but I did, and it's a big deal. There was a letter from the Industry Swaps and Dealers Association to the Federal Reserve saying, hey, you know what, we really think you ought to throw away this SLR, this limit that you place on the banks and their ability to buy Treasury debt. And of course, the reason for that is that there's a lot of Treasury debt to be sold and the number of buyers are slowly but surely shrinking. And if you really read through the lines on that carefully, and it's a lot of inside baseball and monetary plumbing, it's more or less kind of QE infinity, or it'll give the banks the ability to just in an unlimited way monetize the debt and put it on their balance sheet because they don't have to count it as reserve, and so they can more or less print money to buy the government debts.
He suggests that the government is running massive deficits and accumulating debt at an unsustainable pace. To finance this debt, the government needs to issue bonds, but Larry warns that there may not be enough demand for these bonds, which could drive up interest rates and exacerbate the government's debt spiral. Larry believes that the Federal Reserve and the banks are exploring ways to artificially create demand for government bonds, such as by allowing banks to purchase unlimited amounts of bonds without reserve requirements. He sees this as a form of QE infinity, or money printing, which could lead to further currency debasement and inflation.
I'm not sure the market's fully absorbed it, although you could also argue maybe the market has absorbed it because the two sound money assets, gold and Bitcoin, are both at record highs, or very close to. Gold's backing off a bit today, but gold had been constrained within a range of kind of a $2,100 top, $2,050, $2,100 top, and it broke through that rather decisively in the last couple of weeks. So we have a sovereign debt problem, and that the likelihood is that the solution of the government will be to monetize it. And that goes to the letter I just referred to. So the problem that I think the government is going to have as they continue to run these deficits and as they continue to go into so let's keep it really simple, 101. The government spends more than it takes in tax revenue. We know that, and it's getting worse. How do they finance that? They finance that by issuing a bond. Okay, the bond gets, an interest rate price gets set on that bond, which is a reflection of the supply and demand for those bonds. And if there is no demand, kind of by definition, that means the interest rate price has to get higher. And that higher interest rate price would then lead to more interest expense for the government, which it would kind of lead to what James Lavish has said so clearly is a debt spiral or a debt death doom loop. And so the federal government and the Federal Reserve have a real incentive to try and keep interest rates under control. That's a key piece of what they have to do, because if we went to, we're at on the 10-year now, we're in the 4s, but we were at 5, and we saw how that created a problem last fall. And so if we went to 5, 6, 7, 8 on the 10-year and higher rates on the, or similar rates on the shorter durations, the government interest expense would blow out even further, and it's already blown out. It's over $1 trillion a year, up from much less than that 3 or 4 years ago. But and so it would accelerate the funding problem and the financial problem that the government has. And so as a result of all of that, the government and others are looking for ways to find more buyers of those bonds. And because to the degree that they can find a buyer that creates supply or creates demand, which would bring interest rates down, and that's what they want to have happen. They want to have interest rates come down so that their funding costs are lower. The banks can buy these bonds, and often they do, and then they quickly flip them to the Fed or flip them to somebody else, or they can leave them on their balance sheet, but they're somewhat constrained in terms of what they can leave on their balance sheet because of what you referred to, the SLR, the supplementary leverage ratio. And it's confusing even to experts like me. It's somewhat confusing how this whole mechanism works, because it's kind of tricky monetary plumbing that nobody really pays attention to. But boy, when this ISDA letter came out, those of us who were in the know, Fed Guy 12, Joseph Wang or Luke Roman, or those of us who are watching the Lin, or those who are watching the monetary plumbing very carefully, like, holy shit, if I'm reading this correctly, this means that these banks can buy as many of these bonds as they want, no problem, and they create the money to do it. And so that it's kind of, broadly speaking, it kind of looks like QE infinity. We live in a financial fantasy world, really, that these people have kind of constructed. But there are some free markets. Probably Bitcoin is the freest of all the markets in terms of lack of manipulation. And guess what? They get it. Bitcoiners get it, and people are getting it, and they're saying, okay, if you're going to debase my currency, I'm going to buy a currency that by definition cannot be debased above and beyond the programmatic formula. So. And this is why Bitcoin's at new all-time highs, and I expect it's going to go much higher.
We hope this video has sparked your curiosity and inspired further exploration into how we can navigate these complexities. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Until next time, stay informed and empowered. Thank you for watching.